Hello, I'm Mark Sumner, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today we have Vanessa Vallely, OBE, in the studio, which is the CEO and founder of We Are the City.
Indeed.
How are we doing, Vanessa?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Now, normally I look through someone's LinkedIn profile about what I should sort of tease them about. Well, I can't tease you because we've got an OBE, so you're the first person with that honour in the studio. So you've got to tell the story. How did it happen? How's that happened?
I mean, how it happens, obviously, when you nominate, somebody obviously decided to nominate me, and then they go around and they have to canvass loads of people to write letters as to why. And I know this process now because I've paid it forward and I've done it for a number of individuals. Some I'm still waiting for because it's a long old process. So I think it was my contribution towards women, which obviously came from We Are the City, and subsequently We Are Tech Women. And it was my contribution to the economy, which is the interesting bit. Obviously, I take it that's my kind of 25-year career in corporate. So, yeah, it was incredible. I was not expecting anything. I never ever thought a girl like me would get to walk into Buckingham Palace with my parents and receive any sort of honour or medal. You know, it was Prince Charles who did my one.
I was going to say, was it the
Queen?
Queen,
It's
Prince Charles?
Well, King Charles.
King Charles.
So, yeah, I just wasn't expecting it at all. And when I got that letter, because I was in the middle of moving house, so all of my posts on redirect to my mum's, and I was in the car with the kids. I picked the kids up, and I was driving. Obviously, mum was on loudspeaker. She said, "I've got a brown envelope here. It's from the Cabinet Office." And I'd completed a reference for somebody else's honours nomination, so I thought it was that. So I said, "Oh, you can open it. It's probably a receipt for," I can say it now, for Helen Pankhurst, who got a CVE. It's probably a receipt for Helen. So she opened it up, and obviously in a very broad East End accent, my mum went, "God blimey, Vanessa, it's only for you. Like, you've got an OBE." And I was just like, honestly, I nearly crashed the car. The kids were like, obviously one of them kind of semi-knew what that was because me and my mum carried on talking, but the other one had no clue. And I'm like, right, nothing on social media, because I remember my friend telling me you can't say anything for weeks.
Oh, really?
Why? Until it's been announced, when they
right.
actually do like the birthday honours or whichever one it is.
Okay.
So it was like, honestly, it was the hardest secret to keep because I was obviously just so proud. And then it came out, and you don't realise how many people are genuinely happy for you. And you know, people that I'd worked with years ago, teachers that had somehow found out. I mean, I was hardly ever in school, so I was surprised there was a teacher in the mix. But yeah, it's amazing. But for me, that was my platform to do more. I knew that would open up doors of opportunity. If I'm talking for women, about women, and I'm trying to influence someone to help me or stuff like that, that does swing a lot of weight. So I'm very grateful for it. And as I say, I've paid it forward to many because I think that's the right thing to do. Absolutely.
So for the listeners that don't know your background, tell me about We Are the City or We Are Tech Women. Give them a bit of an overview of what that organisation does.
So as I mentioned, I mean, I started up here in the city when I was 16. First job not so far away from here in the wonderful NatWest Tower. Kind of semi got fired from that. Semi. Probably played up to a stereotype that they expected of me of being kind of a little bit on the wrong side of the tracks, a little bit unpolished when I started work. But in a way, I'm more like that 16-year-old girl now than I've ever been, because I called out things that weren't right. You know, I didn't necessarily, regardless of where someone sat within the hierarchy, if they said something I didn't necessarily agree with, I would rebuke it and kind of say something about it. So went through many, many different jobs. And to be honest, I kind of punched above my weight in a lot of my jobs. And probably if any one of my old bosses are listening to this, they're probably laughing, because I was always up for whatever work they would give me, whether or not I could do it. And again, maybe it's the ADHD in me that watches something and goes, I can do that. You know, I can make that, I can magic that happen. But it was a case of, you know, give me an opportunity, let me try that. If I fall down, then, you know, help pick me up, kind of thing. So I went for lots of jobs, and some of them I got where wouldn't say I didn't know what I was doing, but I was only probably halfway there, which is quite rare from what you hear from a female perspective. We're supposed to, you know, click off if we can only do 60% of it, but I was always kind of the other way that went, I'm going to give it a go anyway. So
yeah, why is that? Because I hear a lot of women when they apply for jobs, they'll look at the job application or the profile of the job, And if they don't tick 100% of it, they don't even apply. So
You know, so it's
why
funny.
is that?
We did a poll, an audience poll, one of our events last year, because I thought about that stat, and I thought, does that still hold firm? Because a lot of people bat it about, and unfortunately my audience was the same. Why do we do it? I think women, and again I don't want to generalise and talk for all women, but the conversations I had, we deselect ourselves from things, unless we're ticking all the boxes. So I think that's where it tends to happen. And also I think there's a long way to go in terms of people's job specifications. So for example, we did a focus group where we brought in a load of our clients' job specs and we showed them to the focus group and said, would you apply for that job? And there was some tricky, there was some kind of marketeer or, whoever wrote the job spec thought they was being really clever by going, you will be this, you will be that, and it was too constructed, it was too, prescriptive. So the women couldn't see around the narrative of what they wanted them to be. There was no space in there for innovation or nothing that said, it doesn't matter if you've not got that or if you've not got a degree. If you've got this personality or, this creativity, or, we want to hear from you. So sometimes I think it's to do with that. And also, you now have a nation of women that will look up details about companies. So they're not just going to just go for a company. They want to know the culture. What does the company invest in? How many women are on those boards? What's their pay gap and things like that. So, we won't just, as I say, it's not just about deselecting yourself from a job, but it's about deselecting yourself from a company as well.
Now, when I was looking through your background, you'd had a very lucrative career in banking and operations, but you sort of gave that up for being a full-time advocate for business, female founders, female empowerment in general. Was that an epiphany? Why did you do that?
God, I don't know. I just remember. I remember the aftermath after. Do you know what it was? I think I talked a bit about earlier on. I was like a 16-year-old girl, got her first job in the city, jumped around a lot because that was kind of my strategy in terms of pay and in terms of building a network. Even though I was petrified of networking very early on in my career, but I'd got to a point, and it was. I mean, I'd gone through, the 2008 financial crisis. I'd done a lot of jobs where firms were moving together, so you don't always see the best in companies, you don't always see the best in terms of culture, of people, when you merge two companies together because everyone's protecting their fiefdoms, people are worried about their jobs. So I'd done 3 of them, and the last one really whacked it out of me, if I'm honest. It was a lot of work, a lot of hours, wasn't really seeing my friends and family, and, and I'd totally married to the job. And I think it was a moment, it was sitting on my desk, I was looking out across the Thames, and I just thought to myself, there's got to be another way. And I think that was married with a lot of other things that went on during that time. I was sitting in the room with my senior leadership team, all guys who were incredible. I mean, every single one of them taught me something about the person I am today and gave me air cover when I needed it and gave me opportunity. But my challenges were different than theirs. I had 2 kids that were very young. My job involved me going to India, going to the US. My husband was going backwards and forwards to Houston at that time with his job. It was a much different landscape for me at home. I never had a wife or support. I wasn't on the big salary that give me the support network that I needed to do. And deep down, I was very torn between, I want to be the best mum that I can be, but I was equally ambitious. And there came guilt with that, as to where, obviously my loyalty is laid to my kids, but I was on this trajectory and I was on my way, kind of thing. So it was quite difficult. So I think it was a mixture of that and looking out onto the leadership floor and thinking, how do more women get in the room? Because, and people often say, well, you shouldn't put it like that, but there was a little bit of luck as to how I ended up in the rooms that I was, and I think that was down to that financial crisis, because everyone kind of disappeared. People lost their jobs, and whereby before you'd have to really justify why you had the skill set or why you should be the right person to take that extra responsibility. I think back then, if you had a pulse and they were still paying you, they would give you, all right, you go and fix that or you go and do that. And being the sort of person I am, I'd jump into things and I'd give it my absolute 120, if not more % to do it. So I got a lot of experience very, very quickly. But to answer your question, I just thought, where are the women in this room? Why is there only me? And that led to me going home to my husband moaning, where's the website for me? Where's my inspiration? You had Here Is the City, which I think is still around as a mailing list, but there was nothing for women. But it was a slow news day for women. Gender was on no one's agenda. Diversity wasn't even a term. So we created this website. Stuart built it for me. I think 10 people joined up. At the end of the week, we were like, we've gone viral. You know, it was my mum, his dad, you know, my cousin. And we did our first ever event. We used all of our savings to have an event at the House of Fraser, which used to be there at Monument. And the lady in there, we had a fashion show and everything like that. And I'll never forget it. City AM ran a headline. The markets had fallen in Asia. And they run this headline, you know, as the markets fall, the women go shopping. Because the queue went right round the building to get into this particular event. But, you know, all PR's good PR and stuff like that. But that was the kind of first thing. And then just run it off the side of my desk for 7 years. But I felt, before I actually left corporate, but every time I did anything to do with We Are the City, I felt like it was the right thing to do. I felt it was my purpose. I just wasn't too sure. I couldn't quite work out how it would pay the bills. And 15 years on, I'm still trying to do that. Because, you know, corporate sponsorship and, you know, money into these things fluctuates throughout the years. I'm quite lucky. I've got a lot of supporters in the corporate world, and they know we do good stuff, and it's not just about the commercial side of what we do. But yeah, that's where it kind of began. But now, obviously, it's a good news day. Depending on what day you watch, in terms of the amount of narrative there are about women and their progression. We talk about that a lot more over the last kind of 9 to 10 years than we ever did. You know, it's not all good stuff, but we're having those conversations.
In our industry, in IT, I think the stat is it's like 16% women in our industry. So they really sort of struggle to get people into the industry. And once we've got them in this industry, we struggle to keep them as well. What do you think potentially puts off people coming off?
Well, it depends what report that you read. If you look at the ONS statistics, I think back in about 2019, I think it was, there were 17% of women in tech.
Right.
And then we thought that had gone up to like 21%. But I mean, we're still, you know, hugely dissatisfied with that. There was a report that came out, and I would encourage any of your listeners in the tech space that want to do something about gender equity to read, or diversity across the piece, by the Tech Talent Charter. And that cites 29% of women in tech.
Really?
But it depends. To me, I think we've kind of moved away from terming women in tech. I'm talking about developers, data scientists, cyber analysts. We've also got all these digital job titles now. So I'm not sure whether or not that's showing a true reflection of women in tech or how you want to term them. But we do have an issue. And also, if you look, that report also talks about, you know, the stats around ethnicity when it comes to women in tech. So you've got that intersectional lens that we need to look at. But also, I just think, you know, if you look up some of the organisations, I think there's something like, it's 11 FTSE CEOs in the FTSE 100. None of them are tech, right? So no women are making it to that kind of top level. No women are kind of making it even to like there's a few CEOs of tech firms. We've got promising startups, you know, set up by women, but there's this huge gap. And I think, you know, we have problems attracting tech because our curriculum's so bad. I'm actually off to House of Commons this week. There's a white paper by STEMETS that's calling for the GCSE and the A-level curriculum to be rewritten because it's archaic. So that's not encouraging girls into tech. Then we get them into organisations. That's obviously if they choose to take a degree in computer science, which you don't need to be in a tech role. And then when we get them into firms, they look around them and they go, well, no one looks like me here. You know, there's no women at the top. So we lose them off to other industries. So there's so many barriers at every single layer. You know, there is a wonderful organisation called Tech As You Can, which we're huge supporters of, that are going in schools with new lesson plans that teachers can download to teach them what does tech in aviation look like, what does tech in, you know, I don't know, retail look like, you know, because you can't aspire to be something that you don't understand. So we need to start young and teach the kids young, and then we need to engage the teenagers so they take it up there as an option, and then they take it GCSE and then go on to A-level and degree, or maybe not. Just get their tech experience by, you know, attending code clubs and things like that.